Preparing. Now we are streaming live. Good morning, good evening, namaste, sat nam, many blessings, welcome. Thank you for being here. Now we are streaming live. Oh, and now we have a background noise. Hang on. No background, no background. Good morning. Nope, okay. My God, I don't want background. Okay, we have all of our panelists. Patreon members, you're welcome to ask live questions. We will be taking questions, particularly when I go into Trance with Dolores. We're going to be talking a little bit today about brainwave technology. We're going to be talking about measuring breath, measuring divine sound. We're going to be talking about focusing the mind, and we had a unique experience. I've known Stephanie and Candace for a long time and worked with them for a long time. They're beautiful colleagues. So this is who you have with me today. For those of you who don't know, this is Candace Craw-Goldman. You can find her at quantumhealers.com. And she is the founder of the Beyond Quantum Healing Process. A lot of experience in her time with Dolores Cannon. And I'm really happy. Thank you, Candace, for being here. I'll allow you to introduce yourself further.
Hi, everyone. Well, thanks for inviting me so much, Pamela. And hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Of course, if Dolores is going to be anywhere, I like to be on board. So I'm very grateful to have been asked to participate today. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this because for as long as I've been doing quantum healing, I've been interested in the science of it, exactly what's going on when we're doing this. So we're going to start exploring that today. And I'm really excited.
Me too. And then I have Stephanie Benson, who is a brainwave practitioner. She was the one who had the brilliant idea of us to study my brain and for us to channel Dolores. While I was in trance, she also monitored my brain, and then Dolores came through and told her what she was seeing and why, and gave us a lot of techniques for practitioners around the world. If you practice regression, and if you practice meditation, this is definitely something that you might be interested in. The science behind it was fascinating. And I love what Stephanie had to say because I did not know what I was looking at. So Stephanie practices Beyond Quantum Healing and was trained under Candace Craw-Goldman here. She's an amazing practitioner. You can find her as well at quantumhealers.com. And you can find Candace there if you're looking for sessions and if you're looking to join the modality. It's a beautiful, beautiful practice, and I support it very much. Love what they're doing, and it's changing the world and helping us in so many ways. What I was surprised about in this whole experience was that Dolores came through and started teaching us. Like, we did a little mock thing where Stephanie was the practitioner and I was the client. And we synchronized our brains with our breath. And by a certain practice, this offered in my yoga practice. My yoga practice is called Kripa Yoga. That translates to yoga of grace. That's spelled Kripa after my Indian given name. So this is a technology for those of you who are wondering about why we do all these things. This is for the same reason why I cover my head, not a religion, otherwise my hair wouldn't be showing. This is a scientific technology that helps in various ways. So I was excited when Dolores came through and started sharing with us how to synchronize our brain waves with breath and with a certain practice that we call oneness. And I'll be sharing that practice with you today because it's so beautiful and easy. And I feel like what Dolores was saying is that if practitioners and clients could synchronize their brains in the specific way, that they're going to go much more deeply into their inductions. You're going to get better results. You're going to be able to talk to the subconscious more easily. Practitioners, you're going to get really so much further in the information that you pull forth when you're synchronized with your clients. So clients, you're going to get further with your practitioner. More trust is going to be experienced. So much of that is what she shared. So we're going to be talking about our experience from all of our perspectives. Stephanie's going to share, and we're going to talk about that experience. And then we're going to bring in Dolores for all of you that are in Patreon to go ahead and start putting your questions either to Candace or Stephanie, to me, to Dolores. Now's the time, if you're following from the Zoom link, where you will put that question is And the Q&A section, it's a tiny little folder right up underneath my face here at the bottom of your Zoom browser. It just says Q on the folder. So you can start putting your questions there and I'll answer them as I go along. YouTubers, you would need to join Patreon to get questions, but maybe next time, because I can't see, I don't even have that pulled up. I'm about to go into trance and I won't be able to follow a ton of it. So if you're here, put in your questions in the Q&A portion. So Stephanie, let's start with you. What was your experience of this? What called you to do this with me?
Well, I'll start off by saying that when I first started doing the training for the brainwaves, I was completely spirit drawn to it. It was something that on a scientific level intrigued me, but I was very much drawn to it spiritually, and I didn't know why. I was like, why? This has nothing to do with meditation. This is just a machine that looks at brainwaves, and I don't understand, but I'm going to follow. And so I ended up doing all the training and working with neurofeedback. And I realized that I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I knew that there was something that was happening that was allowing for people to be more resilient, allow them to cope with things in their lives that necessarily they couldn't before. I like to look at it as it's almost like a shortcut to a lot of meditation per se. And so whenever we started looking at how people's brain waves would respond to things on the machine, I realized that it wasn't necessarily just the neural feedback, but it was just paying attention to what's happening to their waves and what is causing these significant changes in each of the different waves that I was looking at. And so after that, I was like, oh, okay, well, now I got to get Pamela involved, because I know that that's going to be something that we've never seen before. And so then I had to track you down, and then we cornered you into a room and got you hooked up.
You cornered me into a room. Not really. You asked very politely, and Dolores jumped in my face and said, upstairs now.
Can I interrupt by saying something? Because I think this is a fun, important story and part of all of this. Stephanie, tell us the story back when you were packing to even show up at this event, because I think that's pretty important.
Okay, so when I was getting ready to come to see you guys, I was kind of like, should I bring the machine? Should I not bring the machine? Should I bring the machine? And prior to that, I had watched the very first, or was it the second, of the episodes with all the scientists that you guys had. And at the very end, after everything was done, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get this machine over there. And then I hear this little voice come up that says, you've got to find Candace. And at that moment, I knew that I had to find her. And so that's how I found my way into getting to meet you guys and bringing the machine in and feeling that big push from her. Even though I had no idea what was happening at the time, I was just like, I don't think that was me talking, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it, because that would definitely, yeah, it felt good. So.
So I just love that, because, you know, I'm always saying that Dolores Cannon's one of the easiest people to hear and speak with, and that she comes to a lot of people. And there's a lot of people out there, clients and otherwise, practitioners, all kinds of people who will say, you know, I just connect with her. I like her so much. And sometimes I think I can hear her. And I think that's absolutely happening a lot. And I think that's how this whole thing even started, is Dolores popped into Stephanie's head and said, hey, go make this happen. And you did. And it was just fabulous.
Yeah, it sure was. And I'm not one to get surprised very easily. And when you asked me this, I kind of went, oh, you're going to see a brain. What are you really looking at? Like, all of our brain waves look the same, right? I mean, you know, so I didn't expect to see anything astounding at all. But what really shocked me was, like I said, the practitioner client information, how to synchronize your brain waves with this oneness technique. And the oneness practice came in through my Kripa Yoga practice. And it was interesting because there was, someone who works closely with me, who is a very strong connection with my master, Ramana Maharshi. And, I have been doing the self-inquiry practice since I was a little girl, the who am I, and going deeper. And one day, this being came to me and he said, have you ever decided that, sometimes your brain likes to go on because you're asking it too many questions? And I'm like, yeah. So he said, what if you just, when you breathe and you inhale and exhale, all you say is just one? What if it's not a question, it's a statement? So we started practicing this, and it got so many phenomenal results. This inhale breath, exhale breath, and then just say one in your mind. And I started doing it, and it didn't come across like a number to me. It came across like a word, like the word one. So that is the practice. That's all that Stephanie and I were doing during this part of the recording that I'm going to show you. And this was a part that made our brain waves completely go into sync. And then strangely enough, we looked at the screen and something amazing happened. Like all of the lines of the different, brain waves started to come together, like in a synchronized moment. Every time we would do that, it would come together in a synchronized moment. So it was really, really interesting. And she had never seen anything like that before. And of course, I've never had my head hooked up to a machine before. So that was really interesting. And we were both just sitting there learning, going, oh my goodness, this is so strange and so awesome. So we did recognize that my brain is in a state of what Stephanie would call coherence. So what does that mean to you, Candace and Stephanie, when you use that word? What does that mean to you?
I'll go ahead and start. So they've done a lot of studies for meditation. And what they've found whenever they've studied someone specifically for meditation in their brain is that there is a coherence between all of the brain waves and the heart. And so the connection between all of the brain functioning and the heart beating will exhibit this coherence in the body, which is what, we're going to be looking at as oneness. And so you don't expect to see that unless someone is in like an extreme meditative state. If you're looking at, monks who have been meditating for a long, long time and you're just studying them in the meditation, but to see someone, I guess, shift into that state or to be able to be fully functioning in that state, that's the really interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard that term before. So it was interesting to hear it, from the scientific perspective, what that meant is, and then when you look at the screen, you can see, all the different, I think your machine measures alpha and delta and beta and theta and gamma as well. Is that correct?
No gamma, no.
Okay.
It was the high beta, right? There was two forms of beta. Is that right?
Yeah, it does measure high beta. Yeah.
Okay. And then it was, what was it again? EEG, ECG.
Yes. So you were set up on an EEG program with an amplifier, which sets up through a software program in my computer. And so basically what it's doing is it's just giving me a live EEG of what's happening in your brain as it's going on. And so what we were doing is we were watching live feedback of where is your wave at this moment? Where is your wave at this moment, to see how it was changing as you were doing things.
Yeah. And we did some with chanting, with certain sacred chants. Particularly, I'm a big fan of the Upanishads. I love to chant the Upanishads. I love to chant Gurmukhi. I love Sanskrit. We tried, some various things. We chanted Om, both in my head and out loud. And we had different results that were interesting. And I think that what was the strangest thing was when you said, why the lines are coming together? Like, why are they coming together? Which is something that you said you hadn't seen before, except in one other person. I still don't know what that means when the lines come together like that. Do you?
Yeah, so whenever you're looking at that, you have that coherence that we're talking about. So whenever we see someone go into a meditative state and they are able to, release the outside world, release the inner thoughts, and they're fully within their unconscious being, that's when you're going to see all of those run together. But from what I understand and what I've read and studied, that we've only seen that specifically happen whenever you're looking at someone who's in a deep meditative state, who isn't discussing anything outside world or, you know, thinking of anything. I mean, they're very deep into that state and not trying to function on another level.
Yeah. And I think that you had noticed something where you said my theta and my delta were really high at some point. And that was interesting because I don't quite know exactly what that means. I'm not a scientist, but that was interesting.
Yeah, so the theta is the frequencies in the brain that we look at whenever we're shifting into our inner, like our inner being. So when you're letting go of outward thoughts, you're letting go of inward thoughts, and you're shifting into that state of consciousness, the ether, whatever you're looking at, where you're going within and you're getting answers from source, things like that. All the work that Candace does, that's all in that theta state. And so when you see a shift like that and the theta and delta come together, that means that those are more, they're your dominant states at the moment. And so normally if someone had a dominant theta and delta state, they would be in a sleep state or they would be in hypnosis. So for you to be able to function in a state where your theta and delta are high like that, that means you're kind of functioning on a level where, you know, most people are having to fully release the outer world and stay still to get into like a hypnotic state.
And how that is, someone asked an interesting question. Was I in trance during this session, during the scan, and was I meditating? That answer is always a yes. Basically, since my enlightenment, what happens now is that I feel that I'm in trance and awake simultaneously. But in terms of the actual trance where, you know, I go through the having trance scenarios, you know, we went through awake, we went through that, we did some clear conduits, we did chanting in my head, we did the oneness technique and various things of that nature. For some reason, my child's school is calling in. I'm gonna have to put you on mute and I'll let you guys continue to talk.
We get to talk. Well, actually, that'll give me a chance to tell a story because my favorite thing is to tell stories, right? So before we were able to find Pamela and put her brain on this machine, there were several of us who were testing this out with Stephanie in the goddess retreat that we were at in Missouri. Was that just last weekend? My goodness. Anyway, so there was this woman who was there, and she may be watching right now, and I'm not going to mention her name, but this woman was a former client of mine, and she had her brain hooked up to this machine, and we were talking about some things, and there were several people around. And Stephanie, it was the first time I was seeing the machine and seeing the brain waves, etc. And we were watching it, and different things were happening. Like there was a sound upstairs, you know, a loud sound, and some other things were happening. The woman who had her brain hooked up was variously talking and quiet. And then this moment, I don't think I will ever forget for the rest of my life. Really, it was that important to me. Stephanie went, "Hey, wait a second." And she pointed at the screen and she looked at the woman and she said, "What were you just thinking about? Because look at this." And then she talked about the lines coming together there, this state where Stephanie's described. Please tell me if I've gotten this correctly, you know, healing moments. Right? Anyway, her brain did this very specific thing that Stephanie watches for when it comes to healing. And the woman turned around and actually, surprisingly, but it was so amazing, she turned around, pointed at me, and she said, "I was thinking of my BQH session with Candace, where I was raising my hands up in the air because she had the most profound healing right here in this room where I am right now." She was an in-person client. She raised her hand and was receiving this profound healing in her body. She just was thinking about it. It was just a memory that was coming up in her mind while she was sitting on a bar stool looking at this screen that was hooked up to her brain. So Dolores Cannon for years had told practitioners and her own clients and and we've told our own clients, that when you listen to your recording back to when you received your healing in your session, that reinforces and deepens your healing. And what was so profound for me at that moment was watching this woman just have a memory of the session where she received the healing. And her brain reflected the fact that she was re-experiencing a healing moment. I'll never forget it, Stephanie. And I have to thank you for that, because it was just like, oh, because we have, you know, hundreds, thousands of us have been telling multiple thousands of clients around the world to do exactly that, to remember, to appreciate, and to actually physically replay their quantum healing sessions. And that was just brilliant, that moment, to confirm exactly the thing that we knew all along, which was how important it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, are you guys ready to see some of the clips? Yeah? Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah, my kids are okay. It was very funny. The school calls in and she's like, so Emily forgot her leotard today and she's in tears. I'm like, oh, we'll have her dance in her school uniform. I don't know what to tell you. It's a practice, not a recital. So hopefully she'll be okay. But when I get a call from the school and 2 voicemails, I decided to take it. So I apologize for that. All right, let's do a screen share, and we're going to be sharing some of these clips, and maybe Stephanie can chime in when she feels led about these clips. Hang on just a second. All right, desktop number 2. That's what we're going to be sharing. Can everybody see that? So this is, at this point, we had just done some silent meditations, and this is what was coming up.
So I'd like to step in here, and I just want to explain that the interesting thing with Pamela specifically, which I have not seen before on any EEGs that I've ever looked at, is the delta, how it maintains very close relationships with all of the other waves. So the red that I'm looking at here on the screen. And the important part about that is I'm wondering what and maybe Dolores can help us with this later, but I'm wondering how directly this is connected with the enlightenment state, because everyone that I've worked with, I've not seen how the delta is almost, you know, running right with or coherent with all of the other frequencies. And so when I look at that, that's really unique to me as a practitioner, to see something where it's running together so closely like that.
It's a part of the enlightenment stage, is the way that she explains it to me. So, and there she is. She said, it's because you don't like being special, Pamela. So we had to make something to make you that way. Welcome to being uncomfortable. That's what she just said. Yeah, she's right. I don't like the whole concept of feeling special at all. So we had just done a few things here in this video.
And we were working with her, and she couldn't be in public or anything.
This is Stephanie sharing her story of the person she worked with.
And I tested her before the class, and then she went and did that for a few months, and she came back in to see me, and all of her frequencies were intertwined and running together. And when she would go to the thought of dancing, it would shift her brain.
This right here, this.
Yeah, see how they're all intertwining like that? So I don't know what that means, because I've only seen that one other time.
Let's do Om.
Yeah.
Yeah. We tried doing Om with the tuning fork. We did a tuning fork Om experiment, and yeah, that was interesting. That took the other woman, didn't it? Take her levels
down,
dropped all the way. So let's see what happens when Pamela does Om on her own. Probably thinking it right now. There they go.
think it brought them all together again. So they all shifted together. It was really interesting because I've never seen any one where they can all run together like that. They're all very separate, or two may run together and two may not. Most people's delta is high. Let me show you how high delta is. Most people's
way
delta
up there.
is up here. So your delta is super, super shifted down. And my theory is that the delta is actually it's our sleep state in our brain, but I think that has something to do with us being asleep here. And as we shift and awaken, what I see is when I see people start understanding life differently and letting go of a lot of those beliefs, the delta starts shifting down. So I don't know if that's a connection.
So that's
or
what
not,
I was
but that's
talking
what
to
I'm
you about
guessing
yesterday, because we did 3 other people and then I did mine, and I'm like, look, see, mine's different than those other 3 people,
Yeah.
but it's in the same way, these red lines being way down
Yeah.
here. Yeah, it's so fascinating.
I have to pee.
Okay.
But I want to keep going.
Okay, here's what I'll.
So that was one clip. Let me close that out. We're going to go. Stephanie, do you have any comments on that experience?
Yeah, I do. I really want to say that frequency is so important, not just for me seeing it on the screen and using my computer to, see what happens in our brain, but on all levels, if it's, sound frequency, light frequency, all of those different things, even the frequencies of everything that we come in contact with, it affects us so much and we don't really realize it. And you can see just by watching you do that, the shifts in your brain and how it, reaches that coherent state. And if we're just paying a little more attention to that in our daily lives, how much that could really help us, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And this is what I love about the Kripa Yoga. I love this also about transcendental meditation, that there's, a part of yoga where you're much more focused on something. And for me, it's always been sound. And for some people, it's breath. I bring in breath pretty strongly as well. So that's the combination of breath and sound as a point of focus is something that you can carry through your day. No matter where you are, you're carrying that, as my master would say, you're meditating without meditating. So I'm going to pull up the next clip if everybody's ready. Okay. Waheguru. Hold on a
When
second.
we're challenged in life, there are 3 impulses to.
Here we go. I was just chanting prior to this. We were just looking at different chants.
So for me, whatever she's doing right now, I felt the shift in the room. Big shift.
And you can see it going down.
Yeah.
Even her, all of them
Yeah.
are shifting down.
Pamela, don't stop doing this in your head for a little bit. Don't just quit. Let's see how low you go. This would be interesting. Because it's as low as.
There's a huge shift in her EEG too. So these were much more exaggerated. They're much larger in their shape. And now you can see the switch in how much smaller they are as far as, the height of them.
Mm-hmm. Wow, huge difference. All right, chant my love.
Sat Siri Siri Kal Siri Kal Mahakal Mahakal Satnam Akal Amuriti Waheguru Sat Siri Siri Kal Mahakal Mahakal Satnam Akal Muriti Waheguru.
I've only seen this one other time how they run together like that, and that was a girl who was very gifted, and we were working with her, and she
Oh, I think we already shared
couldn't be in
that.
public, right?
So I clicked on the, wanted to share the other one with you. I'm trying to figure out. So that was 38. Is this one? Here you go. Where did it go? Over here. Here we go. All right.
Okay, so this is pretty interesting. What we have here is Pamela Aaralyn and Stephanie. Stephanie Benson. Stephanie's like my new best friend. I don't even know her last name, but we've spent so much time together at the retreat. I love her so much already. This is Stephanie Benson and her machine, which measures the brainwaves. And we've been doing some experiments. But what's really fun about this experiment coming up, and by the way, we're in a house where there's 48 of the women downstairs, and we're up here hiding, trying to do this, but they're doing something down there, and it's kind of noisy, so that's the background noise. But we have Pamela Aaralyn here, and she's about ready to speak to our beautiful teacher and friend, Dolores Cannon, who's been here energetically since many of us got here. Stephanie herself was telling us she also heard Dolores, and one of the reasons she's here. So cool. So what we are going to do is have Stephanie ask Dolores Cannon some questions, because this is kind of, bringing it all together, right?
Yes.
And then we'll be able to look at Pamela's brainwave state while she's channeling Dolores and see how that changes.
What are your heads up to this time around?
I think we're here on your request, Dolores.
People, anything that you have to say, I would just absolutely love.
Keep your mind on the transitions between the high beta and the theta. There's a structure to the essence and quality of your work that comes through your nature, but be prepared to see some things that you may not comprehend.
What do you mean by quality of your work? You mean Stephanie's particular quality, or quality of this work in general where we're measuring these states?
Both.
Okay.
It matters about the quality of the practitioner. It matters within the nature of the practitioner. It matters that the practitioner stays in a solid place in her theta and her alpha. When theta and alpha combined, high beta are induced more deeply. You've forgotten about high beta.
Interesting. Yeah,
You should. Your work will change.
interesting. Dolores, what do you have to say about Pamela's brain wave reports or recordings versus some of us more mere mortals who are in this house?
You're measuring immortality. You're not measuring a belief. This is the science of immortality, not your belief. If I tell you something to believe, you have two choices. You can believe me or you cannot. But what are we really measuring? Is it measurable? Will it ever be understandable? Keep going. The mind of the meditator is the balance within science. This isn't what you think in your emotions. This is the science of your brain waves. This is the science of your breath. Focus on her breath and you will have your answer about high beta and why it's important.
Is that something we should do right now?
You can't. You don't have that technology today.
I see.
You are entering a precipice. Everyone's sitting on the edge of a cliff where you're going to jump off. And it's going to be phenomenal. But many of you are sitting there, twiddling your fingers and toes, wondering if you should jump into this science.
I think some of us are doing or interested in these measuring devices for a certain sense of validity because of the continued poo-pooing of some of our more amazing results that we get doing some of these sessions. As an example, one of my favorite moments using this this program was when another person, another member of this retreat, was hooked up as Pamela is right now, and she was remembering a BQH session that we had together. And when she was remembering it, there was significant changes in her brainwaves, just the memory of that. And I got very excited because I felt like you jumped into the room and said, see, this is why I want you to remember and listen to your recordings. What do you have to say about that?
You're connecting to a frequency and then you resonate more functionally. The goal of spirituality is function. Just remember that.
What do you have to say about what's going on with her brainwaves now while she's in the middle of channeling?
So we can see a huge shift when she started to channel, and now all the frequencies are running together. The beta is separate from that, but I was trained that beta is more of our exterior thought process. So from my training, that would make sense to me that that would be happening. Dolores, I have a question for you.
Pay attention to this first. When I speak the alpha and your delta shift, watch it now. Ask the question and then watch.
Okay. So my question is that with all the work that you've done prior and currently, what would be your next step with this device?
Humanity is always seeking proof. Seeking for further validation, further evidence. Evidence of what? God? And what is that? You can't understand or grasp or ascertain something when you're not even asking a question. Question yourselves deeper when you are in a regression. When the practitioner and the client both questions with the same state, everything shifts within alpha and delta. This is a balance that is unique.
So it really is about the practitioner and the client being in a synchronistic relationship.
Everything is in a synchronistic relationship. Everything is symbiotic. And this is nature. This is the nature, not the nurture. The emotions aren't doing it. Your breath is, your connection is. Your soul has its own path because of your breath. Remember that. I wasn't a shallow breather.
When you were in human form.
Or now.
Or now. You breathe where you are now?
I am everywhere now.
And so
I am breath now.
And so you breathe.
Why do you think people want to channel me? I am breath. I am thought. I've always wanted to understand thought. And all I ever needed to do was understand breath. They are the same. When breath merges with thought, something interesting will happen on your machine over here. Watch.
And this is where Stephanie and I were merging together in our thoughts. We were doing the one process at this point.
So she's like silently channeling a connection with Dolores. And tell us what's happening.
So what's happening is we're seeing that as she's shifting into her breathing, all of the frequencies are starting to run together, all of the waves that we're looking at. And so there's, what's the word you gave me, Candace, for that?
Coherence.
There's a coherence in all of our different measurable waves that we're looking at on the screen.
So Dolores, if Pamela was channeling someone else, would these frequencies look terribly different or similar to what's going on?
It depends upon if she's the one observing it. She doesn't believe that anyone is anything else.
Okay, I don't know what you just said right there.
Are you the observer of your own consciousness or not? Who is the observer? And when does the observer become the observed? Research that.
So is this machine flipping back and forth between the observer and the observed?
She is the machine. She doesn't feel a separation. The observer just became the observed.
These lines are right on top of each other, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Dolores, when we go downstairs, do you have a message for some of the women in attendance who are here this weekend?
Calm down. Just breathe. Stop thinking. Stop focusing on what might be hard or bad or squashing about your experience, and just be your experience. You're a human being, not a human doing. That's it. This is not complicated math.
Look how she's still all the way down there with her beta, even while she's talking like that. So as far as I've seen, nobody else here has been able to talk and keep beta down there like that. It's really, really fascinating.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. Maybe. I'm trying to figure out how to. There we go. All right, there we go. Comments, Candace? I feel your thought.
Well, I have so many thoughts, but I guess one of the predominant ones that I had was there was more than one time, I did mention it with my voice during some of my commentary while all this was going on, when some of those lines would go down and come very close to each other. You know, we were watching some of those moments. And those of you who've had quantum healing sessions out there, or who are practitioners and have been, or simply been in the presence of divine healing, or where you know, the field suddenly is very coherent in itself, and you feel like you're part of it. You can feel that energy. So when she was doing that and the machine went down there to some of those levels like that, I could feel it in me, in the room, being there. I mean, that's just fascinating. There's, you know, we only just scratched the surface with this, and none of us were on this machine more than a handful of minutes at a time. And Pamela was so sweet to take part of her day out to do some of this experimenting. It was all very casual, or kind of haphazard. We have this thought that we would like to experiment more, and we plan on doing more things in the future. But this, we were so excited about all of this and Dolores coming through that that's why we're here doing this show today, is to just share our excitement about all of this with you all. Because Pamela, the one thing that you and I were texting the next day, and Pamela said something about the scientists understanding her connection with some of the scientists now, understanding that this is technology and this is breath. And I was sitting in a parking lot at a tack shop getting my halter for my horse fixed. And I'm like, ah! And then she said this, and I just loved it. She said, they're learning new things. And that right there just kind of caught me off guard. I'm thinking, they're on the other side, they're learning new things. And then I clicked, could they be learning from us? And Pamela said yes. And that's when I just went, wow. And so my brain's all over the place if I was being measured right now. And my heart too. I'm just very excited about the potential here, not to do a bunch of proving, it's more of a validation, and it's more of getting some clues about how to do our spiritual work better. We don't need to be hooked up to machines all the time or while we do this. I hope none of you out there think that this is why we've brought any of this to you. It's not that we want to walk around with electrodes to our heads. It's that we're understanding more about ourselves so that we can live better lives.
I agree. I don't think that we caught too much on the two clips that I got today of me and Stephanie, but we had a unique experience where neither of us, this is what was so fun about it. And I'll get Stephanie's take on this in a moment, but neither of us really knew exactly what we were doing. We were doing a technique that we call one or oneness. And again, it was shared through someone close to me and through Ramana Maharshi. And we've been practicing with the Kripa Yoga with it for a while now and noticing phenomenal results. You saw my result with it was enlightenment, that and many other things. But that was the primary thing that I did, was this unique technique. And it was a focus of breath and divine sound. So what I do is I breathe in through my nose, and then I hold it for a few seconds in standard Kriya style. We hold at the top of the breath, you hold it up here, and then I exhale the breath back down through my body. And then I will say one in between breaths. And it came across not as a number, but as a word. And when I asked Dolores why it worked, she said, it's a brain reset. So every time you're doing this practice and saying one in between your breaths, you're not thinking. That's how she explains it. And when you're not thinking, a lot of different connections in your brain can happen, and you can go more into the coherence and more deeply into your meditative practice, into your inductions practitioners, shamans. You can go deeper into the Akash. Channels, you can go deeper into many, many states of your trance and stay that way. This is why I can trance, and it's hard to actually wake me up. When I'm actually in full trance, people who do meditation with me know that this is a bit of an issue, that I go into meditation and they're like, hey, wake up, and like an hour later, a day later, I might wake up, people in my life like really understand that as a part of my journey, that I slip into meditation pretty much all the time, because I love it. So the act of not thinking and putting a point of focus on breath and divine sound, it's a fascinating thing, as proven by the Vedic sciences and transcendental meditation, as proven by this practice, as proven by many well-known practices around the world. So there are many practices like this that work. I just tried to make it simple for myself with the oneness practice, because I didn't want so much of a thinking thing going on. I didn't want so much of a point of focus in my head all the time. I wanted the focus to be on my breath. And one is an amazing focus. So that is the technique. And Stephanie and I were unintentionally doing it together. She didn't know that I was doing it, and I didn't know that she was doing it. And this is the exciting part of the story. And then Dolores kind of comes about and she goes, and this is what you were doing. And we looked at the machine, and in that moment, everything started synchronizing. All the waves started coming together. And then, the part of the machine that shows the, I don't know what you call it, Stephanie, but not the lines, but the left part of the machine, it became blank for a moment. There was actually like almost zero activity. Can you express why you think that happened, Stephanie?
Yeah, so basically what we were looking at there was it's funny because we call it interference. If we're looking at it from a perspective of what I've been trained, we weren't really looking at that screen and thinking that there was a lot going on with that specifically. However, thanks to Dolores and some explanations, what we've seen is, you know, we're looking at it as, oh, there's some brain activity. We don't know what it is, right? But Dolores did a great job at explaining to us that what we were actually witnessing was how the breath is responding in the body and in the brain. And that just opened up a whole new world as far as measuring it and seeing how it works, because we didn't really know what we were measuring there all the time. We knew that sometimes if it was this way, it was possibly some sort of interference coming from the outside world, or, you know, maybe someone was tense, but we didn't really know. And so whenever we saw that, and she explained that that was breath, and Pamela's screen went completely very calm. And it was almost like the entire part of her body and her breath just, you know, went into that coherent state with her brain, and she was completely calm and breathing. I don't even know how to explain it. Breathing in such a way that it was allowing her brain to function on this totally different level of meditation. And the interesting thing too about that whole story, Pamela, was I had never done the one meditation before, and I've done several different types of meditation in the past. And so I'm familiar with the feelings you get when you go into meditation and coming out of meditation and things like that. But whenever I did go into that state and I said one, for me, it was like, and so this is going to tell my age. Do you guys remember those old tube TVs, you know, the tube TVs that you push the button and turn it off, and you see the screen come up, right? And you push the button to turn the TV off, and it's like all the, I don't know, the screen goes shoop, like that, and then all the lights go out. That's exactly what happened in my brain. Like I just saw all this static, and then it went to like a 1, and then it went completely blank. And at the same time, I felt a lot like how I feel in meditation. I felt that rush coming through my brain, through the back of my brain and through the front. And so it was just amazing. And it didn't take long at all.
And she woke us up and she said, now look.
Yeah.
And then everything, and what it was is you are merging your brainwaves practitioners with the client. So it wasn't exceptional to me as being in an enlightened state. It was two people resetting their brains simultaneously. And it was fascinating that we're so connected that we didn't even know. And I'm like, what were you doing? Oh, the one. I'm like, oh, me too. Yeah. So it kind of happened quite by accident. So we were like the perfect experimenters because we had no idea. You know, it was very blind in the research.
Yeah.
We had no idea what she was telling us to do. She was telling us uniquely. She was telling her, Stephanie, and she was telling me, and neither one of us knew. Like, we didn't say, this is what we're going to do. You do this and I'm going to do that.
No.
It just happened that that's what we were doing in our connection. So we were able to merge our brainwaves temporarily to the point that everything was in coherency. And then we felt great. When we came out of that, we felt as if we had been in trance for like an hour. And Candace and I and Stephanie and I were sitting in the room together talking about how good we feel. You know, and we were in the middle of a retreat with 52 beautiful women, but they were also incredibly boisterous. And you could hear the background every now and then. Everyone was having a great time at this goddess retreat. And we were up here and we walked down like we'd been in a meditation for 3 hours or something. And finally, I think Samantha, the retreat facilitator, was like, what have you been doing? What were you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, but we'll be talking about it soon. So I feel like what was happening was not just brain coherence, but it felt also like heart coherence. For those of you who follow heart math and some of these technologies, I strongly believe in brain and heart coherence. And this was something that Dolores has been talking about. She went like this. She went to my head and my heart and she went, whoop. And I'm like, oh, is that my brain? You know, my brain waves and my heart waves moving simultaneously. And we all felt it. We all felt so much love in this. And she was explaining to me later in the day that that's what was happening between the three of us. So even though Candace at that point was not actively practicing the one, she still felt. Did you not, Candace? Did you feel the difference in everything?
It was amazing. You know, after facilitating quantum healing sessions for very many years. I'm used to the energies in the room, but it was really fluctuating and it was kind of amazing. And those of you out there who practice and you're in coherence with your client, you know what that feels like. And when they get the healing and you're getting like washes of healing too, just by being there. And I was at the back, I was sitting there was a little bar stool and table in the room at that time when I was videotaping this part of it, and they were across this way. And then they did that, and the whole wave came over and just enveloped me as well. So it was, for me, it really spoke to the whole concept of entrainment, right? So they were synchronistic, they were coherent, and that field was so strong over there. And I'm getting goosebumps just saying that right now, that they were able to entrain me, who is just holding my iPhone up and taking video of all of this. And then I think, Pamela, didn't we start talking about like group meditation at that point, right? This is why people get together and meditate in groups. Because if you can get like a lot of people together doing that at the same time, wow, really very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did a lot of, the Kripa Yoga, at this retreat. A lot of us joined in. And it was interesting whenever I would feel that the group of women were getting like so up here in their energy, and I kind of wanted like a more peaceful, grounded energy, I would sit there for a moment quietly, and I would play my singing bowls, and then I would do the oneness process. Before I would even sing anything, I would do, that process. And then suddenly people they stopped talking. A couple people came over. You remember this part of the conference? Then a couple more people came over. And this was before I even opened my mouth to chant. So it wasn't just about the chanting. It was about the energy that I was trying to create and exude in the science of grace. So I will say that again, the energy that I was trying to create and exude in the science of grace. So what I'm teaching here is something that's going to bring you further into a spiritual technology. And this is why I channel scientists. This is why I love, transcendental meditation as well, even though I'm not practiced at it. Not affiliated, just love it, highly recommended. This is why I love a lot of these practices that go into this, because meditators and yogis have technology, this that I'm wearing on my head right now. For those of you on YouTube who are curious and keep asking me about my head, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it is a technology, not a religion. If it was a religion, my hair would be up. Notice my hair isn't. So there's an interesting technology that goes along with wrapping the head as well. So now's the time for you guys to start asking your questions to Dolores. I'm going to let Candace and Stephanie take that over, just trying to kind of pay attention to the chat and the Q&A section. And I'm going to go into trance. You can wake me up in about 30 minutes. I'm out. Satin up.
All right.
I would like to say that one of the great things that Dolores had made us aware of last time that we were meeting with her is that there's been a lot of studies on coherence in the brain and the heart. And the thing that we've left out this whole time is the breathing. And I think that that's something that we need to really focus on in practitioners, is it's not just coherence in the heart and the brain, but it's the breath that I believe brings it together.
Brilliantly stated. Well, we have about 5 questions in the Q&A box. If you have specific questions, do find that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, because these are the questions that we are going to be asking Dolores. All right. Okay. When she shows up. Lots of people were hearing Dolores at this retreat, even before this retreat, and even friends of people who were going to this retreat. Dolores Dolores was all over the place, and it was a lot of fun to have her show up and play with her.
What are you up to in your heads this time?
Here she is. Hi, Dolores.
Hi, Dolores.
Now you're moving very quickly in all of these thoughts. What are you learning?
that our hearts know, our hearts already knew. These are things that we already knew, but we humans can be pragmatic and like seeing these things. And it's funny that you're saying, what are we up to in our heads? This is the first time I've ever seen you channeled from Pamela while her head is covered. Does that change anything for you, Dolores?
Why would it change anything for me?
I
The
don't
body
know.
is the body. It's not her. She's trying to maintain this body. That's her technology. What many yogis don't know is that upon enlightenment, the body wants to fall away. This technology connects her body in a different way because of her breath. And the technology that we shared with you also connects you because of your breath. When the breath of the practitioner and the breath of the client are one, for a while, you unlearn, you undo everything that Maya, illusion, all of the science that you love so much has taught you. I was an avid reporter for science and still am. Yet at the same time, we shouldn't forget the heart. You bring up a very valid point, Candace. And the breath is the connection to your heart. The breath is your connection to the sound that is God in you.
Okay, I'm going to ask as a quantum healing practitioner, from the science perspective, when we are thinking about hypnosis and visualization, guided visualization techniques and modalities, we're often focused on the process. With my newer approach, I try less to think about the exact process and more about the inner frequency of the practitioner. But this exploration that we've done with the machine and now this focus on this breath, if we were to do something as basic and simplistic as match our inhalations and our exhalations with our client, does that assist in this connection and coherence? Is it that basic?
Meditation is a technology that has been around throughout your creation of time. Of course it works. Of course the breath is all there is. This is within many sciences that go back to your Vedas. You understand the science of these technologies cannot be disputed. It has been researched time and time again. And of course you should match your brain waves with that of the client. The breath does this. And the more you focus on a specific modality, if it pulls you into your heads too much, then extraneous thought, as recognized in your machine as beta, extraneous thought will take over. This is not a match to heart and brain coherence, with the exception of some meditative practitioners out there that can align all of their frequencies simultaneously. This is effective in transcendental meditation. This is effective in Kripa Yoga. This is effective in some practices around the world that can work parallel and side by side. You can choose whatever modality you wish. There isn't a competition at all in your modalities, your techniques, your processes. And please understand, it isn't one process that is better than another. If you do one, you shouldn't do another. If you do one, you should do another. All of this is egoic thought chatter that distracts you. You are not far from God. You are God. Only your thoughts cause the degree of separation that causes your brains to be out of alignment with God and out of entrainment in theory.
Quite lovely. We have a wonderful question from Elizabeth, who asks, Dolores, can you speak about when the human body has a diminishment in breath due to injury or illness or inflammation? What's going on with that human in that instance, in that case?
Well, that would be an interesting Pandora's box to open, because what would be going on is unique contract within that person and their blueprint and their specific alignment in whatever it is they're choosing to learn. They have cut off their own breath for some reason that is unique to them in their contracts and experiences. It's helpful in induction to find out and then clear it. You can clear it the moment your belief is no longer prevalent, is no longer in the way. As I say very often, just get out of your way. Not everything has so much of a meaning that you need to fix it. What if it's helping you to still your body so that you can remember your breath, and that breath would return when you still the mind, when you calm the body, when you understand the beautiful technology that is given to you in the tool that you call body? What if it is to recognize that you are not that you are in a body, but you are not that body. You are in it, but not of it. Then you begin to feel the resonance of gratitude that would occur when you choose to feed the body loving thoughts, when you choose to feed the mind loving emotions, when you choose to withdraw from unloving emotions and unloving foods and unloving overworking and exercising to the extent that you believe that you must somehow punish yourself, somehow harm yourself in body or mind. There are various contracts that could be coming through, and the knowingness will arise. But at first, just breathe, just calm the mind, just admit that you know nothing and surrender to the body's lesson. It will somatically tell you everything that you need to know at the moment that you need to know it.
I woke up from a dream of you the other day, Dolores, where you said the body is a frequency modulator. I wonder, could you expand on that if I actually heard you correctly?
It's your tool. Of course, it modulates all of your frequencies as you will allow, if you will allow. The body is a car. You are spirit. Spirit is the driver. How are you driving your car? The body simply tells you the frequencies that are emitting from your mind. And you can allow this to be modulated with breath. The breath and the body work together. And when you put this point of focus on the breath and the body, the mind will obey. If the mind obeys, peace is realized.
Stephanie, I want to hand this over to you as a brainwave practitioner who's been doing this work for a while and intrigued with Dolores's work. I'm sure you've got some questions. Would you like to ask some, please?
Sure, I do. I have a question about, it's a newer studied type of frequencies. They're called infra-low frequencies. And so these are frequencies at 0.1 and lower. These haven't been studied before because most EEGs that are ran, that are looked at by neurologists, they kind of throw it away. It's the junk part of the EEG. But they're doing studies now, and the scientists are looking at mice and thinking that this may have some sort of connection with consciousness. And this is up and coming, and so I'm just wondering what your view is on that, Dolores.
That's not measurable with any of your earthly machines. However, your Vedic practitioners in Vedic science would understand the nature of consciousness as it is observed, and when the observed is quiet and understands that it is also the observer. This is the point of consciousness, where all dreams run together and reality is observed as oneness.
That's so interesting. I just love talking to you about all of these different things. And the tools that we have that we can use now to assist other practitioners in helping people basically heal themselves with the understandings that we need. And sometimes our human brains want as much concrete evidence as we can get when it comes to being able to accept things that have been known since the beginning of whatever time has been or was. And so this is all exciting to be able to discuss this with you. I do have a question about when we're looking at affecting people in a room. So, you know, Candace experienced this last time whenever we did the EEG. And could you explain a little more on, I guess I'm interested in knowing if someone is very close or in that meditative state or in enlightenment, how much is that affected in a room, in the world, in their town? Everyone says go within. If you want to change the world, go within. How much does that affect the outer world when that happens?
An enlightened being knows the secrets of the body, knows the silence of the mind, knows the power of connection with breath, and understands the universal heartbeat coming from divine sound current within. And you can grasp and perhaps realize the nature of an enlightened being when belief is out of the way. The observer is the observed. There is a nature within that being that causes a vast array of energy, of grace to exude from such a being, whether it is upon intention or not. That an entire room, an entire city, an entire county, an entire state, an entire several states, or if she chooses, the entire earth can be affected by the presence of one who realizes grace. And imagine if all of you could meditate peacefully for just 30 seconds, the degree of oneness that could occur within the connection of breath and universal heart. Imagine the shift collectively in your consciousness.
Let's ask some more of our viewers questions, shall we? Suna asks a question about looking at brainwave readouts and understanding their resonance. I guess some neural feedback is what she's asking about, but she's wondering if we can look at our brainwaves to learn how to resonate, similar to how deaf people learn how to speak. I think she means by neurofeedback, but I'm just guessing there. Maybe Dolores can read through all that and answer.
It is not the nature of the machine, the biofeedback. It is because the observer is being observed. And in the nature of such oneness, the observer recognizes the observation until the observer becomes the observed. And there is a merging where no separation is warranted. And only truth in this illuminated oneness can arise. It is not the nature of the machine that would cause this. It is the nature of merging breath and sound into heart.
That leads us pretty nicely into another question from one of our viewers. Sarah asks, she's linking up sound and pattern and color and linking that science with the spiritual, and she wants to know more. How does all that play into what you've just spoken about?
Only she would know. However, when she observes sound, she observes them as patterns. If she was wrong, and if I am wrong, someone will likely correct us. She observes this sound as a pattern, and this cannot be observed until she speaks When she speaks, a pattern is observed. To ask her to observe her breath prior to when it would become form in word. The word, the language, the sacred coding between words and language is immanent here and is vital and significant. This is why there are many sacred languages in the lands. Perhaps she could stand to consider studying this.
Thank you, Dolores. Here's a really interesting question. I'm not sure I'm going to say your name right. Karine wonders if when you send someone energy or love from a distance, can it be picked up by this machine, or does it show on brainwaves if the receiver of the energy is hooked up to the EEG machine? I guess she's wondering, can that be measured the way we've been measuring some of these other energies?
In that case, you would be measuring the power of a belief. And if the person's, the sender's intention is one with the heart of the receiver, then of course it could be measured. What is the power of belief in the sender of the thought and the sender of the love? What is the nature of oneness in the sender? This is all significant and cannot be answered in any general statement.
Stephanie, Maria's question, do you see the questions? Do you have the question box open? I think that would be a great one for you to ask because of your knowledge of some of the programs as a brainwave practitioner. Why don't you take it from here?
Okay, so let me just give you guys a short view. We did some, whenever we did some of the EEGs prior, we had people use some of their own musical equipment, or we had used ohming devices. And what we had seen from that was a shift in brain waves. Sometimes it would go up and shift together. Sometimes it would go down and shift together. So I think a good question to ask with this is whenever we are playing chants, meditative tones, and other things beneficial for meditations, how does that affect everyone? Does it affect us the same? Is it individually?
That cannot be answered. Only the person who would observe the sound would know how it would affect them. But it does observe and can be observed in universal consciousness. And as we observe your collectives of meditators who are transcending the nature of thought with sound, we observe that you are shifting the entire planet. And there is a science to this. Again, your Vedic practitioners understand the nature and the science of combining sound with breath and intention, when even the conscious thought in the beta can be observed in oneness with all of the other brainwave technologies. And you understand that it's not a matter of performing this task for you, but when you observe that you are all one, and you're doing this not just for the sake of your research and understanding, but for the sake of compassionate service, then you're arriving upon your research in a much more ethical manner.
Vanessa has a good question that I would like to bring up, and this is regarding the different frequencies. She asked, does the brain match the heart frequency, or does the heart match the brain frequency, or do they merge to a third frequency?
The brain is the servant of the heart. The heart is the master. The brain will follow the heart's command. Heart commands the breath. The breath is the liaison between the heart and the brain follows the orders of the breath. The body is the container for all of them. It is the container. It is not you, but it contains you here.
Another question from Elena that we have is she wants to know, can we heal our body during the oneness breathing techniques?
It is highly possible if it is observed daily and even a small amount of time. And this is what yogis and meditative practitioners around the world understand. Meditation is vital. This is what many of you are doing in your beyond quantum healing practices. You're observing breath with intention of sound. When your thoughts merge, practitioners and clients, the oneness that occurs is the science of the induction.
Alina has a second question too about what do you think, Dolores, of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work?
A lot of thought activity there, merging the thought with the breath scientifically. Much essence, much passion in the work. I am not of any place to judge anyone's work.
I love that answer. I was trying to imagine how she would answer that, and I did a pretty good job. I want to jump ahead and ask this question, if it's okay, because we have someone with us named Elm, who says that she, I'm guessing you're a she, Elm, is autistic and works in the field of occupational therapy with autistic kids. Before sessions, I connect with client and the higher self of client and set the intention that our session be appropriate for the cover story of occupational therapy goals and awareness of unity. Do you have suggestions or tools on how someone who holds awareness of oneness with the client while continuing to address specific occupational therapy goals? Kind of like, you know, people's employment tasks, etc., as appropriate in each moment. It's a really interesting question.
As if it could ever be separate. The nature of your employment activities, the goals of your company, and the highest and best intentions of the soul of the observed. Of course it should be one. It need not even be mentioned. There is way too much thought in this intention setting. Just state that there is oneness in all, and that the highest and best intention is always present. That's it.
Dolores, I have a question. Since autism has been brought up, I have worked quite a bit with the autism spectrum and other special needs children, specifically doing the neurofeedback with the EEG machine that I have. And as a neurofeedback practitioner across our country, really, we've seen huge changes in autism with this specific type of treatment. We've seen children who were not talking, start becoming more aware of their surroundings and learning to communicate on a level that they haven't been able to communicate before. And so my question to you is, when we're working with these kids doing the infralow techniques that we use, is there something more that we could be doing to improve their responses that they're getting?
And what do you mean by the improvement of the responses that you would be receiving? What is your expectation of the children?
I don't know if we necessarily have an expectation. I guess communication, for them to be able to communicate with their family on.
Let's stop there. We are making an assumption. We, being the practitioner in this moment, you'd be making an assumption that the child is not communicating. what likely could be occurring is that there's a lack of congruency in the brain and heart waves, a lack of coherence, a lack of oneness between the parents and the children. What causes this is the intention of expectation and the scientific nature of assumption. Firstly, you are assuming that the child is not communicating. It is likely the parent or the practitioner that isn't, and expectation is the block in this communication. The children are teaching you how they are communicating, yet many practitioners and parents are wishing for a type of communication that they would be seeking, that they would understand. You are undermining the nature, while unintentionally, of course, you are undermining the nature of what the child is trying to teach you and their unique communication styles. Do you follow?
Oh, absolutely, I do. I really love your answer on this one because as a practitioner, you know, working with children specifically and parents, there's always high expectations. There's expectations to please the parents, and it really just kind of is validating for me, because that's really how I felt all along, is that these children are communicating in a way that we'll probably all be communicating 10 years from now, and that we just haven't figured it out yet. And so we're kind of working backwards with them. So thank you for your answer. I
They
appreciate
don't
it.
hold a need to communicate with a verbal word. Why? Why should they? If all of their communication is in their heart, you assume that they are emotionally dysfunctional practitioners, therapists, parents of autistic children. Drop the assumption, release expectations, and just observe them. What if for one moment the science of breath could pull the two of you together? And this technology of breath and intention and connecting to sound together would be the unity, the oneness, the coherency, if you will. Many parents will say, oh, my autistic child isn't communicating. Are you listening? The communication is subtle because the heart is subtle. God is still, not loud, not obvious. If they don't require communication in the way that you do, just observe them, allow, join with them, breathe with them in unison. Try matching your breath with the breath of your child. These simple practices. That's all.
That's so lovely. We're about out of time. Can we do one last question since we're at the bottom of the hour, please? Jeannie Zach asks, Dolores, are you always with QHHT and BQH practitioners during sessions? As she is a very new practitioner, she asks, may we ask for your presence to assist and guide us until we gain confidence, and maybe even afterwards?
To assume that I'm with one and not with another would be an interesting concept. What do you wish to believe? You can call upon anyone, including me, and we are there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming through and being with us today, Dolores. This has been delightful. It's time now to wake the channel. It's time now to wake the channel, Pamela. If you can hear me, your trance time has ended.
Oh, darn.
I'm sure we could have gone on. We have lots of questions left in the box. Maybe we can get those next time. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for setting this all up. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Pamela.
Oh, thank you so much. I really loved it. Thank you, guys.
I really enjoyed it. If you want to find Candace Craw-Goldman, she's the founder of the Beyond Quantum Healing Technique that Dolores just absolutely sings praises with me at least. And all around the world, speaking to practitioners all around the world, guiding them towards their inner coherence. You can find that at quantumhealers.com, and you can find Stephanie there as well. She's an amazing practitioner in both fields, probably combining both as we speak. Are you combining that? I'm really curious if you're doing those two things together, the Beyond Quantum Healing and the brainwave technology.
I am. I'm working on all kinds of new things that I don't even have names for yet.
I
So
love
maybe
that.
I'll have names sooner or later. But
Yeah.
you know, we're just seeing what is the easiest, the best way to get people to learn and heal themselves and get them to the place that they need to be without getting all of these routines and these practices that we've been taught out of the way first, so we can get there and leave that behind. So
yeah, that's what I love so much about the Beyond Quantum Healing as a modality, is that it opens you up to combine any and all practices. There's no competition in practices, things of that nature. I have to be even cautious when I mention that I love transcendental meditation these days, because I'm not like certified and, things of that nature. So but I don't like that. I wish that all practitioners could just understand that there's no need to compete in anything. Like, we're all healing the world together. It's all oneness. And this is what I love about Beyond Quantum Healing. And I advocate it strongly, as much as I advocate transcendental meditation, as much as I advocate for Kripa Yoga, which is my practice, as much as I advocate for Kriyas and Kundalini Yoga. All of it, really. I love Isha Yoga as well, with Sadhguru. I love so many practices all around the world. And Earth really, really needs all of us. We need each other, and we can all be, everybody should be free to practice exactly how they want to. And that's just something that's been really in my heart all day. With Dolores has been here. She's like, why is everyone worried about who practices this and who practices that? And, and then another being that I channel, another mastermind, came through, and he's like, oh, I don't care who practices what. They should all just be practicing. How do you feel about that, Candace? Are you observing that as well, that practitioners around the world are kind of like asking questions about what to practice? I say, practice it all. Choose, do what you want.
Well, that's the foundational thought of BQH, but I still have a lot of acceptance and understanding for the parts of the 3D that just, still hang on for people, even those who practice the healing arts. And there's some of that is wrapped up in respect and tradition. And we're working our way through all of this. All I know is when your heart is connected, it's all going to work out. Yeah. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for all of the practical enlightenment tools that you have been sharing with us all freely and through your programs. And check out Pamela's Practical Enlightenment. You'll be glad you did.
It's a lot of fun. What I was noticing going into my enlightenment journey is that, I'm a mother of 4, a widowed mother of 4, I don't have help, in that way. So if I can do it, I didn't have much time. And these days I'm starting to recognize the value of taking the time. But at that point in time, it was like, well, I'm going to get up and I'm going to put a little bit of time into this practice in the morning. I'm going to put a little bit of time in this practice in the evening. And then I'm going to practice meditating without meditating all day long. I'm going to practice carrying that frequency. My body is the frequency modulator, as Dolores put it so succinctly. Your body can work for you. And I realized that I needed to really honor the body and honor, the breath. And this is something that, all of my masters, including Dolores, was teaching me. And she's like, you could have all the gifts in the world. You could be awake spiritually with so many active abilities. But if you don't have access to your breath, the mind's going to take over. And if the mind's taken over, the body basically just dies. The body just slowly dies. So if you want to keep your body around, it would be nice to understand the frequency of grace. It would be nice to understand oneness. It would be nice to connect with these breathing techniques and to understand. Some people come to me and say, my goodness, it's all so simple. How could this really work for enlightenment? Well, I don't know that answer. I just know that it did. And I know that I want to share it with you. And it's kind of this backwards way that I went about it in enlightenment, because I thought for sure that all being born with gifts, all this helping other people, opening up their abilities, that would be the key to it, but it wasn't. It wasn't. As a matter of fact, there are many times when it made it harder to have all these abilities and then to not have mastered my body and my breath. So the simple nature of mastering the body and the breath will open up all your abilities that are meant to be opened up, connect you to your purpose. And when you step into enlightenment, you help the whole world. It's not just about you and your abilities. So many people are coming, just open up my third eye and then, here's the money. And I'm like, if I open up your third eye right now, you're going to go into a psychiatric institution before you understand your breath. And, I kind of poke at it jokingly, but it was happening all around the world, New Age communities particularly, I was noticing it. So what I would like to observe now is that so many New Age practitioners are much more grounded with these practices, with beyond quantum healing, with transcendental meditation, not my practice. Again, I'm not certified or affiliated, but I highly recommend and I'm not certified with beyond quantum healing, but I highly recommend it. And I love what both of these organizations are doing. And I just highly support both of them. And of course, if you want to follow my practice as well, feel free to honor your heart in that. You can find that at PamelaAaralyn.com. You can work with me individually for mentorship sessions. You can join Patreon and start learning the techniques in groups. That's a lot more costly that way. That's at patreon.com/Pamela Aaralyn. And you can join me in the path and see how easy it is. So many of my mentorship students right now are going, gosh, I'm loving these practices. Are you guys practicing? Have you started doing the one technique? A little? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're doing it too?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. And we're getting just so many results. And I love that. So I'm not sure when I'll see you again, YouTube. Probably, let's see, I've got the compassion event with Channeling Jesus and Mary and sharing more Kripa Yoga and oneness techniques with you. We're going to be doing some satsangs with Kripa Yoga and practical enlightenment at the event. We have 2 satsangs purely focused on practical enlightenment and Kripa Yoga. You're welcome to join me at the Center for Spiritual Living in St. George, Utah next weekend. So you can find that information on my website as well if you want to join me live for these practices and sit with me. It's a small group right now, but we're looking forward to, at least doubling that size. Right now we have about 15 of you signed up, and we hope to grow it until at least twice that. And then that'll be about the crowd that I can handle for a satsang. Not this upcoming weekend, but the following one. So you can see me there, and patrons, I will see you very soon, probably as early as Monday of next week. So I'm going to sign off YouTube for now. I love you guys.